Let's take a look at Mastercam user interface and let's actually draw some geometry. Okay, so we're going to start off by setting up our drawing area a little better. We went over the configuration files. We went over how to open and close these. But one of the things I like to do is I like to have my genomen show up at the origin. And because remember, we're going to create our geometry, and remember in G-code, PRZ, program reference 0, is critical, right, where we place our PRZ, because that's how we set up our program. So we want to make sure that we know where we're setting it up at. Now, granted, we're going to change that and we're going to move it around, but we could move it around. I want to show you how to do that, and I recommend we do that initially. Okay, so I come over here to Toolpaths and I'm going to go to Planes. And once I click on Planes, I'm going to come here under Display Options. And I'm going to say Always Display Genomen. Okay? And that's this. Alright? And we're going to put this, we're going to draw our geometry relative to this. This is our PRZ. So we're always going to draw our geometry relative to this. Now, where do we normally put our PRZ? On top, lower left-hand corner. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to do the same thing. Okay, now I shifted the view a little bit by rotating it to show you that. If I need to get back, okay, you can jump here to the view, and we want to go to the top view. Okay, so I go back to top. Now some people don't like it there because it's kind of cluttered, but I want to see my PRZ. Now with as I'm creating geometry, this area gets used up, so I don't really need this right at the moment. So I'm going to unpin it and allow it to excuse me, auto hide. Okay. So I've auto hidden that. It'll pop back up if I move over it. All right, whatever I need. And we're going to start with some wireframe geometry. And we're going to start with rectangle. And why do we start with the rectangle? Well, in machining, milling, vast majority of our material is rectangular. And if you learn how to use this, a lot of the skills that we learn will apply to all of the commands that we're going to use. So I'm going to click on rectangle. And when I do that, I get the rectangle dialog box over here. Okay, I get the command prompt here. And we can move that. If you don't like that, you can put it wherever you want. Okay, but what it does is it prompts us, what do we need to do? So it wants to know the first position. Well, if I'm doing stock, right, I want to put it at the origin. Okay, so you can see as I move my cursor, it wants to snap to that point. Okay, and then I'm going to drag away and I'm going to click. Now, some very important things that are going on here. Okay, the object, the rectangle, is light blue. That means it is not finalized yet. Okay, it has not been applied. Okay, so when I click that point, I can make changes. Okay, I could change this to 8 tab. I could change this to 7 tab. Okay, it's not fixed, so I can move it around. I could change the first position, and now notice that the box is moving. I could pick out here. Okay, it's still not applied. It's light blue. If I don't like that and I want to take it back, I could click back here and put it back. I can change this at any time. Okay. Now what I did just now to get this to recenter so quickly is Mastercam has all these alt functions. So what I hit was Alt F1, Alt F2. And Alt F1 centered it, and Alt F2 zoomed out a little bit so we could see it. Okay? And I find that quicker than going to view, right? Or using my mouse. Okay, so I did Alt F1, Alt F2. When we are ready to apply it, if we want to stay in the command, we say OK and create a new operation. If we are done, we say OK. If we don't want to keep anything, we check on cancel. So let's say we want to stay in. Okay, as soon as I check that, that's what used to be called apply. We have locked this entity in. This entity is blue because that's what my default color is. And to get this to pop up, I just right mouse clicked and then I hit escape. Oops. Okay, now when I hit escape accidentally, it kicked me out of the command. But I can go right back to it. Okay, but this is still applied. So let's do another one. All right. This time I want to create the same size rectangle, only moved over starting at 9, 0. Okay? So what I can do is, because these values are in here, I could lock these. All right? Now, it still wants to know where the start position is. So I go to auto cursor, right? If I open that up, this just gives me snap information. But maybe I want to type in a location for my start point, which we often have to enter things exactly, right? So if I click on this icon here, this is auto cursor fast point. And what that means is you can type in your coordinate. So let's say I want to go 9, 0, 0. So now that is my start point. If I hit Alt F1, Alt F2, I zoom out so that I can see both entities. Okay, now again, it's not applied, so if I wanted to change it, I could unlock it. I could change this to 4, and I have a narrower icon, or a narrower object. It's still not applied until I hit this button. Okay, now I'm still in the command, so I could create another one. Now this time we're going to use a snap. We're going to snap to a position. So I'm going to use my mouse, and I'm going to scroll out. I'm going to hold down the Shift key, and I'm going to hold the middle mouse button, and I'm going to move the objects down. All right, and now what I want to do is I'm going to create a rectangle covering both of these. Okay, so I'm going to, for my start point, going to pick here, and then I'm going to click out here, and I know this was 10, I'm sorry, this was 8, 9, and 4, which is 13. So I'm going to change this width to 13. Tab. And I'm going to change the height to 6. Tab. Again, it's not fixed yet. Okay, if I want to keep making rectangles, I do that. Okay, well, what if I want to start a rectangle from the midpoint? Okay, now auto cursor's on. All right, but I could force it to default, or I could force it to take one of these options. So if I just move it, like, it's going to grab automatically the midpoint, and that green button means something. If you take it and hold back on it, it disappears. Hold on it for a while, you get a green. Hold on it, it disappears. And that means something. I'll talk about that in a minute. But let's say I want to start at this midpoint. Okay, and then just pick another point. Okay, so I can snap to any number of areas. and I'm going to say OK. To finish that. Well, I'm going to make it, let's make it nice. Let's make it 8. Let's make it 8. Okay, and then let's say OK. And this is the result. Let's look at a couple more options with the rectangle command. Click on the rectangle command. We can anchor it to the center. Right now we're doing the corner, and it's asking me now to select the base point. So if I go here and click on the middle point, I get a rectangle, and I could make that 5 by 2. Okay, and then if I want to create another one, I hit the blue button. Okay. And if I don't want that, I uncheck it. Okay. And that kind of shows some of the options with the rectangle. You kind of want to practice with that. It's obviously very handy. Oh, most importantly, okay, what happens when you create geometry? Well, you often want to erase it. Well, that's very easy, right? Just click on the object. Oh, but I'm in the command. Oops. So if I hit cancel now, it still kept that, right? So if I want to get rid of that, I highlight it and delete it. Now, whenever you have entities on top of entities, you can have entities on top of entities. When we do toolpaths, that can be a major problem. So you always want to be careful of that. So you always want to try to erase all the entities accordingly. And this is where, you know, this comes in, right? Because if I say select all line entities, it selects everything. And then I could hit delete. Okay. All right, or I can select them individually, or I can put a window around them, and it's going to select the objects, and then I can just hit the delete button. Okay. Or you can right mouse click and hit delete. So I could select this, right mouse click, and say delete. Okay, now I still have an entity. No, I don't, I guess, because I cut that out. I don't have an entity on top of an entity. So that's some of the capabilities of the rectangle command. This concludes the video.